Welcome to all in your YouTube channel NCERTE Teaching. I am Dr. Kailash Meena, going to present a quick revision of chapter number 2 from class 12th biology, which is sexual reproduction in flowering plants. And because this is a quick revision, this presentation will also helpful for class 10th science students for their chapter how do organisms reproduce, because they are also going to get the overview of plant reproduction. And because nowadays first periodic test is going on in Kendriya Vidyalayas, that is why I was planned this lecture for quick revision. So let's start the chapter very briefly. Now, overview of flowering plant reproduction. This overview is based on our understanding of life cycles which we have learnt from class 11th biology. So here two stages are signified, which is sporophytic and gametophytic generation. What is sporophytic and what is gametophytic? See, plants have alternation of generation in their life cycle. Let's consider this. We humans always have two sets of chromosomes. We are diploid. We have 46 chromosomes but 23 pairs of chromosomes. That is why we humans always are diploid. And every single cell of a human being in its life cycle is a diploid cell except sperms and eggs. Consider another example, which is of fungi. Fungi are always haploid in their life cycle. They are always haploid. Their body is haploid, their all cells are haploid, their gametes are haploid, their spores are haploid. Only one cell is diploid in the life cycle of fungi, which is zygote, which immediately divides via meiosis to produce haploid spores. So we can generally say that all fungi are haploid and all humans are diploid, which is very easy example. But in case of plants, I am talking about Pteridophyta, Bryophyta, Gymnosperms and Angiosperms groups, which are embryophytes. So in case of these plants, we can find any plant in haploid condition. It means all cells will contain only single set of chromosome, or we can find any plant with diploid condition. It means that all cells of that plant will have double sets of chromosome. So this type of life cycle is called alternation of generation. It means one generation is diploid and another generation is haploid, and that diploid generation is called sporophyte, which we have learned in class 11th. And the diploid generation is called as sporophyte, and the haploid generation is called as gametophyte. And sometimes we encounter with male gametophyte and female gametophyte. So this is a generalized life cycle of angiosperms or flowering plants. And in class 12th biology or in class 11th biology, wherever we encountered with plants, whether it was morphology, whether it was anatomy, whether it was plant physiology or reproduction, anything, we are only talking about flowering plants, means angiosperms. So this is the overview of the life cycle, which we are not going into deep, but you can understand this cycle with context with class 11th biology. And this also makes sense because when plant is diploid and there is meiosis, there will be haploid cells which are called spores, megaspores or microspores. Microspores will give rise to male gametophyte and megaspore will give rise to female gametophyte. And then finally they will produce sperms and eggs, it means gametes, by the process of mitosis, not by the process of meiosis. This is the basic difference which class 10th by science students are also going to learn, that we humans are producing sperms and eggs, means gametes, by the process of meiosis, because we are diploid and gametes are always haploid. So these are the basic differences when we study plant reproduction and when we compare it with animal reproduction or human reproduction. And finally fertilization happens, then zygote forms, which is a diploid cell. Again it will multiply by mitosis, and finally it will give rise to a diploid plant. I am not discussing in detail because we have to revise the whole chapter in this lecture now. So this cycle is called alternate generation. This term is important. Now the next slide, the flowers and the gametes. So as we all know that a flower has male reproductive structures and female reproductive structures and other structures which are going to help in reproduction. These structures we can find in a flower in circles or whorls. These things we have learned in plant morphology in class 11th. I am repeating this, whorls. Whorls means those circles. And we also have learned the floral diagrams when we studied plant morphology. So we represent these whorls by this type of circles in a representative or mathematical diagram, and we also represent the number of individual members of these whorls. This is not a topic for this slide. Now I hope you understood the meaning of whorl. So we have 4 basic whorls in a flower, which are: outermost is calyx, second outermost is corolla, then we have androecium, which is the group or whorl of male reproductive parts, and each member of androecium is called stamen, and again the innermost whorl is called gynoecium, and each member of gynoecium is carpel. This is the carpel, the complete female reproductive part. So calyx and corolla, which resides in the outer periphery. Calyx is green here, you can see calyx is green, leaf like structure which can perform photosynthesis. Corolla, the iconic part of the flower, is this colorful part which attracts pollinators or insects pollinators for pollination. And finally the most important parts of a flower are male and female reproductive parts, which are this stamen, which also have anther and filament, and the joint between anther and filament, which is called connective. And finally the innermost part, which is female reproductive part, which is called carpel, and the complete whorl is called gynoecium. So this is the overview of flower structure. Now when we study male reproductive part, we will find this type of anther and filament and connective between them. So this, when we cut this anther, so this diagram, this section is also given in our NCERT book in quite detail. This is very important for examination point of view also, this diagram, which have pollen sacs or microsporangia. Why microsporangia? Because this anther is a part of flower and flower is a part of sporophyte, which is diploid generation, and this anther have these chambers and these chambers have some cells which is this tissue is called sporogenous tissue, and this will give rise to pollen grains by the process of meiosis. So these cells are also called microspore mother cells, because after meiosis when we get haploid cells, those haploid cells are called microspores, and they will give rise to male gametophyte, and here the male gametophyte is pollen grain. So what we know about pollen grain till now in the reference of pollination, whether we were studying plant reproduction in class 7th or we were studying plant reproduction in class 10th, we know about pollen grains because of the pollination. The process of transfer of pollen from anther to stigma is called pollination. So those pollen grains are tiny plants which are male gametophyte, and they are so tiny that they are composed of only 1 or 2 or 3 cells, and that is why we sometimes do not give that consideration of male plants. So we refer them as male gametophytes when we are discussing the angiosperm reproduction. Now I am briefing this. So this male reproductive part or stamen have this anther. This anther have some chambers which are called microsporangia or singular microsporangium, and that microsporangium will have microspores by the process of meiosis, of course, because microsporangia or microsporangium have sporogenous tissue which have these microspore mother cells or diploid cells. These cells are diploid cells, so they will undergo meiosis and they will give rise to pollen grains or microspores first. And microspore is the first cell of male gametophyte which is pollen grain. Microspore is the first cell of male gametophyte that is pollen grain. It means if microspore divides and if it will produce 2 cells, the 2 celled structure is called a pollen grain, and the maximum number of cells in a pollen grain is 3. So this male gametophyte is very tiny. Now, so that is why we are referring this as microspore, and in this diagram they are also referred as pollen grains. Now we know why, because microspore is a single cell, and when it will divide it will give rise to 2 cell or 3 cell structure, that is called pollen grain. So for class 12th biology standard we can use these microspore and pollen grain terms interchangeably, although there is a slight difference. The first cell of male gametophyte is called microspore, which is a single cell. Now let's talk about megaspores. What are megaspores? So as I have discussed earlier that this is the female reproductive part. This is the female reproductive part which is called carpel, and the complete collection of carpels is called gynoecium in any flower. If there is only one carpel, it is also called gynoecium. So you may have heard the term gynoecium before. This carpel have 3 structures: stigma, style, and ovary. So stigma is a part where pollen grain lands. So we can define pollination as transfer of pollen from stamens to carpel, or transfer of pollen from anther to stigma, anther of stamen to stigma of carpel. So stigma is this part. So this is the stigma, the receptive part for pollen grains, stigma. This tube like structure is called style, which is the path for pollen tube, and again this ovary have some ovules, maybe one or more, and one more thing, that after pollination and after fertilization this flower will transform into fruit, and this ripened ovary is called actually fruit. So these ovules are called seeds after fertilization or after ripening. So you can imagine by considering fruits in your mind, that if we are talking about pea, there will be 7 to 10 seeds. If you are imagining mango, there will be one seed. If you are imagining papaya, there are several seeds. So those are ovules. So now you can imagine that a ovary may have one ovule, may have 5 to 10 ovules, may have 2 ovules, may have 5 ovules, or may have several ovules. So this is the connection between ovary and ovule and fruit and seed. Now this diagram represents the transformation from microspore to pollen grain. So this is also called development of male gametophyte. This is also called development of male gametophyte. If in your examination the question is asked as describe the development of male gametophyte in angiosperms, you have to describe this process, the transformation from microspore to pollen grain. So this is a single cell which is called microspore, and this is a cell with this is a structure with two cells which is called a pollen grain. So what happens is simply the single cell divides and there are two dissimilar size of cells. One have more cytoplasm, another have less cytoplasm. So more cytoplasm, this cell is called vegetative cell or tube cell. This is also called tube cell, because when pollen grain germinates, this tube cell will transform into pollen tube, and the another small cell, comparatively small cell, is called a generative cell. Although they have the equal nuclear content, but they have unequal cytoplasmic content. So this is about the transformation of microspore into pollen grain, where within these chambers, within this process is happening within these chambers. These cells are transforming. So first these diploid cells, which are microspore mother cells, will transform into microspores by meiosis, and after that those microspores will transform into pollen grains. Now the development of female gametophyte. So the first question is, what is female gametophyte and where do we can find female gametophyte. So again consider this stigma, style and ovary. So this is the ovary, and inside ovary we can find one or more ovules. So for ease of study, here only one ovule is shown. This is the ovule, and you can also see that slightly red kernel like structure inside the ovule. This is called embryo sac. Embryo sac. Embryo sac. And as the name is suggesting, this is a pouch for embryo. Embryo sac. And this embryo sac is exactly the female gametophyte. So what is female gametophyte? The embryo sac within ovule, within ovary of carpel. What was male gametophyte? Again I will remind you, the male gametophyte was the pollen grain. Inside these pollen sacs, inside anther, and anther is a part of stamen, which is male reproductive part of a flower. So these terms may seem somewhat complex to you, but after repeating this content, because if you are going to opt biology after class 10th, as I am making this lecture for class 12th biology as well as for class 10th science. So if you are going to opt for a class for biology in class 11th and 12th, then you have to encounter these terms again and again, and revision is the mother of skill. So if you repeat so many times simple terms, they will it will go within yourself, it will go by heart. So moving to the development of female gametophyte. What is female gametophyte? Female gametophyte is embryo sac within ovule, within ovary of carpel. So let's imagine this diagram. This is the ovule. So this ovule have several cells which are diploid, of course, because flower is a part of sporophyte which is diploid. But yes, this ovule have some cells which are micro, as the anther chambers, those chambers were having microspore mother cells. In the same way, this ovule is also have megaspore mother cells, and those megaspore mother cells or megaspore mother cell, if it is one cell, will undergo meiosis and it will produce 4 haploid cells. What is meiosis, what is mitosis? If you want to know, you have to go backward, retro, in class 11th bio, and you must revise the chapter number 10, cell cycle and cell division. Then you will understand that after meiosis we have 4 daughter cells with half number of chromosomes. Half number means with haploid number of chromosomes, and haploid generation is called gametophyte in case of flowering plants. So these are the 4 cells: megaspore, mother cell which have megaspore mother cell which was found in ovule is a diploid cell which will undergo meiosis and will produce megaspore, which is a haploid cell. And here we can see 1, 2, 3 and 4 megaspores. Of course they are unequal in size. One megaspore which I have labeled here as 1 is a very large structure, and this is also very important because when you will study, or you, I suppose that you have studied human reproduction. There, if you remember the production of eggs in the oogenesis, then you can remind yourself that there were 4, and the product of meiosis were 4 cells, but 3 were polar uh, bodies, and 1 was the ovule. And the egg mother cell and the egg or the ovule have sorry, not ovule, the ovum has this equal, roughly the same size. So same case is here, although that was the gamete. Here we are talking about spores. But if a megaspore mother cell will produce 4 cells and 3 cells will very small in size, then of course then the one cell is roughly equal to megaspore mother cells. Now this megaspore, spore means haploid cell. Let me clarify one thing. If you encounter two terms, gamete and spore, anywhere in biology, gamete and spore, they will always haploid. Let's never confuse. Gamete will also haploid and spore will also haploid. The only difference is spore can give rise to new individual by the cell division or mitosis, but gamete cannot do this. Gamete have to fuse with another gamete, then it will make a zygote which is diploid. Then this zygote will give rise to another individual, whether by the process of mitosis, by making several cells of a sporophytic plant or a human or a lizard or butterfly, or it will go into meiosis and will produce spores. Again those spores will give rise to fungi or another bacteria. So this is the difference. So never confuse, gametes and spores will always haploid, and this will help you to understand the type of cell division while producing this type of cells. For example, if I say humans are diploid and they are producing gametes, you can simply say, okay, gametes are haploid and humans are diploid, so humans are producing gametes by the process of meiosis. If I say that fungi is producing spores, and you can simply remind yourself that okay, fungi are haploid, gametes are haploid, so they are producing gametes by uh, mitosis. So I am sorry, I was talking about spores. So they are producing spores by mitosis. So whether they are producing spores or whether they are producing gametes, they will always produce by mitosis. Only in the case of zygote, zygote will produce spores by the process of meiosis, of course, because zygote is diploid. So this simple understanding of that gamete is haploid and spore is always haploid, you can always make predictions about plants and animals in by what process they are producing spores or gametes. For example, we humans are producing gametes by meiosis and plants are producing gametes by mitosis. Why? Because the generation of plant which is producing gametes is called a gametophyte, and gametophyte is always haploid and gametes are also haploid, and that is why gametes are produced by the process of mitosis. And here in the case of angiosperms, the male gametophyte is pollen grain and the female gametophyte is embryo sac, which is found in the ovule. So here in the ovule we have seen the production of megaspore, which will give rise to female gametophyte, which is embryo sac. So this diagram is very important in the case of development of female gametophyte. Previously we have studied development of male gametophyte inside the chambers, which are called microsporangia or microsporangium singular. Here now you consider this. See, this was the ovule in that diagram, and here was the megaspore mother cell. Megaspore mother cell. So this is the megaspore mother cell. This connection I wanted to convey. So this megaspore mother cell will go into meiosis 1, then it will go into meiosis 2, and it will give rise to 4 cells. So this is very simple thing. Now you can understand, by the process of meiosis, this megaspore will produce 4 haploid cells which are called megaspores. So these are 4 haploid cells. Now why it is called tetrad, megaspore tetrad? Because there are 4 cells. Now if you rewind this diagram, this is the megaspore tetrad, the cell number 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now if I go again in this diagram, so that one cell from this megaspore tetrad, I am drawing this cell for you here, the 1 cell, 2 cell, 3 cell and 4 cell. So if 3 cells are less in size and 1 cell was big in size, so I am showing here that these 3 cells are degenerating, destroyed, degenerated, and 1 cell is surviving. So this one surviving megaspore, which is haploid, because spores are always haploid, whether they are megaspores or microspores, they will always haploid. So this haploid megaspore, one from this megaspore tetrad, will undergo into mitosis, but a special type of mitosis where only nuclear division is happening. Cell wall is not forming, so we cannot see cells forming, we are only seeing the nuclear division. So here after 1, 2 and 3 mitotic divisions, we are seeing or observing 8 nuclei, and after that cell wall formation happens. So this cell wall formation happens like this. Imagine this is the structure with 8 nuclei. So how cell wall formation happens? That cell wall formed like this: cell wall and cell wall, 3 cells, cell wall and cell wall, 3 cells, then 6 cells formed, and finally 1 cell formed with 2 nuclei. So because of this special type of cell division, we find finally a structure which is having 8 nuclei and 7 cells, and this is very important structure for board examination point of view also, or for NEET examination also, because this structure of embryo sac. What is embryo sac? Embryo sac is female gametophyte. Embryo sac is female gametophyte. Embryo sac is female gametophyte which is having 8 nuclei and 7 cells. Which cells? The name is also important. So this is the final structure of mature embryo sac, which have 3 cells which are called antipodals. So antipodal 1, antipodal 2, antipodal 3, 3 antipodals, 2 synergids, synergid 1, synergid 2, and finally 1 egg uh, which is not visible completely here. This is the egg cell. This is the egg cell. So we have 3 antipodals, 2 synergids and 1 egg, finally 6 cells, and finally this cell in the center, this big cell in the center, it is called central cell, which have 2 polar nuclei. So this structure is very important from your exam point of view also. So this is the development of female gametophyte, and the development of female gametophyte is also important, and in many times in board examination the question have been formed. So now we have completed the process of the development of male gametophyte and the development of female gametophyte. Let me remind you again. Microspore is the first cell of male gametophyte, and what is the male gametophyte? The pollen grain is the male gametophyte. And here megaspore is the first cell of female gametophyte. What is female gametophyte? Female gametophyte is embryo sac. Where can we find this, both of these structures? We can find pollen grain in the chambers of anther, and anther is a part of stamen, which is a male reproductive part of flower, and we can find embryo sac in ovule, in the ovary of carpel, and carpel is the female reproductive part of a flower. You all know very well from your class 7th and 9th 10th curriculum, and you are familiar with structure of flower in several other discussions also. Now, the male gametophyte is pollen grain, which is 2-celled or 3-celled structure, and the female gametophyte is embryo sac, which is 7-celled and 8 nuclear structure. And finally, the male and female gametophyte are haploid structures, and all other structures are diploid. So apart from embryo sac, all structures of ovule, carpel, style, stigma are diploid, and again apart from pollen grain, all structures of anther and stamen and flower are diploid. Now we are talking about fertilization. So this is the iconic diagram from your class 10th also. In your class 10th science uh, chapter number 8, how do organisms reproduce, this diagram is also there. This diagram shows the events after pollination. What is pollination? The transfer of pollen from anther to stigma. Now what happens at the stigma? At the stigma, pollen grain absorbs nutrients, and its tube cell, again consider this diagram, this vegetative cell or tube cell will absorb nutrient. And if you see the diagram of pollen grain in your class 12th biology, you will see some scars here, and these scars or holes are called germ pores. Here I am showing 3 germ pores, although there may be 3 or 1 germ pore. Let me give you another fact that in case of monocotyledons you will find 1 germ pore, and in case of dicotyledons you will find 3 germ pores. So this is very important character for the difference between monocots and dicots also. So whether it is monocot or dicot, it will have germ pore, either 1 or 3. So what is germ pore? Germ pore is a place where pollen grain do not have or have very thin cell wall or protective layer. If when you have studied the chapter number 2 of course in the detail, then you know that the pollen grain also have a protective layer which is called sporopollenin, the toughest material, and that is why we are finding fossils of pollen grain. And this is very important question also from examination point of view. Sporopollenin, very tough layer, secreted by the tapetum. What is tapetum? The innermost layer of anther. This is very detailed information which is not for class 10th science students. So here the holes or germ pores, where the germ pores are there, 3 in the case of dicots and 1 in the case of monocots, there will be no protective layer or sporopollenin, and that is why when this tube cell or vegetative cell will get nutrition, it will come out like this, and this coming out of tube cell is called the pollen tube, and it will contain the when these things are happening, this generative cell will go another cell division which is mitosis, and will give rise to two male gametes, and these two male gametes will finally come out in this pollen tube. So this is how germination of pollen happens on the stigma. So very brief, these things are happening here. So now you can see here, this is the pollen tube. What is the pollen tube? The extension of pollen grain from germ pore, and this pollen tube is actually the vegetative cell or the tube cell, which is having 2 sperm nuclei or 2 male gametes. And here we can see clearly the role of style. So there are 3 parts of female reproductive part which is called carpel. One part was stigma, second part was style, and the function of stigma was to accept pollen grains after the process of pollination or during the process of pollination, and the germination of pollen of course. And what is the function of style? It is a hollow tissue or very soft tissue, and it is the path for pollen tube. And what finally happens is that this pollen tube will reach to the embryo sac. What is embryo sac? The 7-celled 8 nuclei structure which is female gametophyte. This embryo sac is, this red structure is female gametophyte with these 3 antipodals, 2 synergids, 1 egg cell and 2 polar nuclei with central cell. Now I am clearing all this. Now you can see clearly that pollen grain is a pollen tube which is shown in yellow color is reached to the ovum. or the egg. Actually the process is very complex. The egg, it will not reach directly to the egg. What will happen, that with the help of these two synergids, synergid means the helpful cells, with the help of synergids, these two male gametes, let me remind you again, two male gametes produced by the generative set within the pollen grain will go inside the embryo sac, and what will happen, one male gamete which is called a sperm will fuse with egg, and we are so familiar with this concept from our class 7 to 8 to 9 to 10th and 11th also, that egg is the female gamete, sperm is the male gamete, whether we are talking about plants, whether we are talking about animals or humans. And male gamete and female gamete will fuse with each other, and this process is called fertilization, and they will produce a diploid cell which is called a zygote with a single nucleus. That was very important question for class 10th and class 8 science also. Now the concept is very clear for plants also, that pollen grains and embryo sac are not gametes, they are gametophytes. Again, like we humans, plants are also having sperms and eggs, but sperm in the pollen grain and egg in the embryo sac, which we can find in the ovule in the flower. And for our imagination, ovule represents the seeds in the fruit. So fruit which you are eating are nothing but ripened ovaries, and the seeds are ripened or mature ovules, of course with plant embryo after fertilization. So we all are aware about this fact that fusion of male and female gamete to produce zygote is called fertilization. Now I have said that this pollen tube have two male gametes, one male gamete with egg will fuse, and after fertilization it will give rise to zygote, and of course zygote will divide and divide and divide, and it will give rise to plant embryo. But what will happen to the second sperm? This is very interesting phenomena in case of flowering plants or angiosperm, and it is very iconic feature of angiosperms also. This is very important for class 10th science, 11th biology or 12th biology. So uh, understand this very carefully. The second sperm which was delivered to this embryo sac will go to these polar nuclei. What are polar nuclei? We can find polar nuclei in the central cell. The embryo sac, which is a 7-celled 8 nuclei structure, have 3 antipodals. You can see clearly here 3 antipodals, 2 synergids and 1 egg cell. So finally we have 6 cells. Now one big remaining cell is called the central cell with these two, 1 and 2 purple things, polar nuclei, and this little blue sphere is the second male gamete or second sperm. Where is the first sperm? First sperm will fuse with egg cell, and will give rise to the zygote. Here you can see the process of fertilization, fertilized egg. Why it is not zygote, it is fertilized egg? Because it is having two nuclei, one from sperm, one from egg. When these two nuclei will fuse and will form a single nucleus, then it will be called a zygote with diploid nucleus. Now these two nuclei are haploid nuclei, one from egg, one from sperm, and this stage is called dikaryon. You must be familiar with dikaryon in the case of fungi. So dikaryon is a stage having two nuclei, and this stage is temporary, of course. These two nuclei will fuse and will form a single diploid nucleus of zygote, and that will give rise to plant embryo, of course. So now coming back to these polar nuclei and the second sperm, okay, these three will fuse and they will give rise to triploid structure, and this will make sense because if two haploid nuclei are fusing, they will give rise to diploid zygote, which will form a diploid plant embryo. So this is also making sense. There's two polar nuclei and one second male gamete will fuse together to form a diploid nucleus, and which will give rise to a structure which is diploid, and that structure will called endosperm, and this nucleus will be called as, this diploid nucleus will be called as This diploid nucleus will be called as endosperm nucleus, and we will designate it as P primary endosperm nucleus. So PEN or primary endosperm nucleus will be formed after the fusion of this male gamete with these two polar nuclei, and zygote will form after fusion with the egg and the sperm. So here we can see two fertilization happening, 1 and 2, and this phenomenon is called as double fertilization. This is very important for class 10 science, for 11th biology and 12th biology. The double fertilization is the iconic structure, the phenomenon of or feature of angiosperms, monocots and dicots. And we students, we which plants we are seeing generally when we think about plants, we are thinking about the angiosperms, whether they are cereals or grains which are monocots, or trees which are called dicots. Both are having the common character which is called the double fertilization. And one more thing, the second fertilization which I was talking about, the fusion of three nuclei, two polar nuclei plus one sperm nucleus, is called the triple fusion. So when we talk about double fertilization or triple fusion, these two features are very important for the point of view for NEET examination also. So double fertilization and triple fusion is the character for angiosperms. This is very important thing for you students. Now I am concluding the revision by taking the process of the zygote formation. What is the zygote formation? So as I have talked that the first fertilization, which was the fusion of egg and sperm, will form the zygote. So here you can see the zygote. This is the this is the embryo sac, which was previously female gametophyte. Now it will become the plant embryo with stored food. Why I am taking with the talking with the stored food? Let me explain. So this embryo sac was having 7 cells and 8 nuclei, and after fertilization these 3 antipodals. So let's do not confuse, because this diagram is somewhat reverted. In our previous diagram the egg cell was showing in the bottom, and here I am showing the egg cell on the top and antipodals in the bottom, because there is nothing top and bottom. When we are talking about flowers or biological structures, we can draw diagram in either way. So let's consider that these antipodals will degenerate after fertilization. These synergies, 2 synergies, will also degenerate after fertilization. So 3 plus 2, 5 cells have degenerated, and we know that embryo sac have 7 cells. So only 2 cells are remaining. One egg cell which have fused with the sperm, and it will form the zygote. So the remaining cells are, number 1, the zygote, which was previously the egg cell. After fusion with the sperm, or when the nuclei and the nuclei fused, it have become the zygote. And finally this PEN. What is this PEN? Primary endosperm nucleus, the fusion of 2 polar nuclei plus 1 sperm cell, and it is a triploid structure. So after fertilization in the embryo sac we are having 2 structures. One is zygote, which is diploid, and one is PEN, which is primary endosperm nucleus, which is triploid. Why diploid and triploid? Because the diploid structure is the result of fusion of egg and sperm, 2 nuclei, haploid, and the PEN, which is primary endosperm nucleus, is the result of the fusion of 3 haploid nuclei, which were 2 polar nuclei and one was sperm or male gamete. And other structures like 3 antipodals degenerated and 2 synergies degenerated. So now let me tell you one more thing. Zygote will develop into plant embryo, of course the diploid sporophyte generation, and the zygote is the first cell of the sporophyte, as the microspore was the first cell of male gametophyte of pollen grain. Megaspore was the first cell of female gametophyte, which was embryo sac. Now the zygote will be the first cell of sporophytic plant. What is sporophytic plant? The plant which is having diploid cells. So it will divide mitotically. Zygote will divide and divide, and finally it will form this globular structure, heart shape structure, and torpedo shape structure. So these are the different shapes during the plant embryo development. And one more thing, one part of this zygote or one cell of the zygote will form another structure which is called suspensor, and this suspensor is important for acquiring nutrition. So I will come to the suspensor later. Let me tell you one more thing. So finally we have these two cells, zygote and PEN, diploid cell and triploid cell. So diploid cell will develop into plant embryo plus suspensor. Let me correct my statement. Plant embryo plus suspensor. So this structure have developed from this zygote only. What will happen to this PEN or primary endosperm nucleus? This will develop into a nutritive triploid structure which is called endosperm, which is called endosperm, the nutrition for the embryo. So very simple, in very simple words, I am again repeating the thing. There was the phenomenon of double fertilization, the first fertilization in which egg and sperm fuse and they gave rise to this zygote, the diploid structure. In the second fertilization, triple fusion happened because of fusion of two polar nuclei plus one male gamete, and they gave rise to this primary endosperm nucleus. Other rest of the things, 3 antipodals, 2 synergids degenerated, and this structure is the embryo sac. Zygote divided mitotically and gave rise to suspensor and the embryo. And here I am taking the example of a diploid plant embryo. Haploid plant embryo will look somewhat different. So here this is the embryo, and this triploid structure which is called PEN will develop into the endosperm, and endosperm is a nutritive triploid tissue for the embryo. And now embryo have two choices. It will consume all the endosperm during its development. What will happen afterwards? This zygote plus this complete ovule, the rest of the ovule also, because as we all know that this embryo sac we can find in the ovule. So this was the ovule previously, and in ovule we are finding the embryo sac. And where do we find ovule? We find ovule in the ovary of the carpel. So this ovule will mature into seeds, so the seed having plant embryo after fertilization. So fruits we are having, and in the seed in the fruit is representing the complete ovule plus the plant embryo plus endosperm. So what I was talking about, that this plant embryo have consumed all the endosperm and stored all the when it consumed the endosperm, what it have done, that it used the nutrition in the endosperm for its development, and plus this embryo have saved some nutrition in its cotyledon, the structures and the structures in the embryo or the embryonic leaves are called cotyledons. For very simple thing, if you want to know about cotyledons, you can visit the 11th biology, morphology and anatomy of flowering plants. So cotyledons are embryonic leaves of uh, plant embryo. So in this case the cotyledon have nutrition stored. Why? Because we all know that seeds are going to grow after seed dispersal. So why fruits are sweet, why fruits are attractive? Because we humans and other insects and animals will grab those fruits, eat those fruits, and they will spread the seeds across the globe, and this process is called seed dispersal, and after that seeds will germinate. So as we all know that plants are autotrophs, they make their own food by the process of photosynthesis, and we humans and other animals are the heterotrophs. We are not able to make our own food by the process of photosynthesis, so we acquire our food by other plants and animals, either herbivory or carnivory. Now if plants are autotroph, why do they require reserve food? Because when seed will grow, it will take time to form leaves, and without leaves, without chlorophyll, no photosynthesis can happen. So for that short period of time, embryo needs some nutrition. So in case of this plant, I was talking about the dicot plant or the tree, the nutrition will be conserved in the form of cotyledon of embryo, And where do this nutrition came from? This nutrition came from this diploid structure which is called primary endosperm nucleus, which will develop into a nutritive tissue which is called endosperm. And let me briefly describe one more thing. In case of grasses, in case of grains, in case of cereals, or in case of monocot plants, there will be one cotyledon in the embryo. There will not be two cotyledons, and that is why they are monocots. So monocots will consume the endosperm for their development for sure, but they will conserve the endosperm as such for the seed development. What I want to convey is that when you see one monocot seed, whether it is wheat, whether it is rice or corn, so corn, wheat and rice will have plant embryo plus endosperm conserved. So we have two types of seeds. One seed, for example, we are talking about pea or gram. Pea or gram. So pea and gram are dicot seeds. So they have only cotyledons of plant embryo which have conserved food. So when we sprout the gram or the peas, what happens? The conserved food within the cotyledons of the plant embryo will help plant to grow from its seed form of seed when it sprouted. But when we are talking about grains, wheat, corn and rice, what happens is that the endosperm conserved in the monocot seed, not in the cotyledon, endosperm as such, will help plant to the seed to germinate. So the flour we are eating, the part of corn we are eating, the part of rice we are eating, the part of wheat we are eating, the chapatis we are eating, the bread which are eating is nothing but endosperm or starch. So we are eating the starch of that plant. So for monocots, but it is a very generalized statement. There are exceptions, but for very general or simplified terms, because I am making this video for class 10th as well as for class 12th. So after the process of fertilization, we can find two type of seeds: monocot seeds and dicot seeds, or simply endospermic seeds and non-endospermic seeds. What are endospermic seeds? The seeds which have plant embryo plus endosperm. Which are non-endospermic seeds? The seeds which have only plant embryo, no endosperm, because they have consumed the whole endosperm. Very simple. So in mostly in the dicot plants, what happens in the pea plant, in the gram plant, what happens is that during its development, the embryo will consume the whole endosperm and they will store food in their own part, which is called cotyledon. And what will happen in the case of monocot plant or monocot seed? The plant embryo will not consume the whole endosperm. They will save uh, some endosperm for the future use, for the germination. And those seeds or monocot seeds are called endospermic seeds, and seeds which do not have any endosperm are called non-endospermic seeds. One more term: albuminous seeds and non-albuminous seeds. So endospermic seeds are also called albuminous seeds, and non-endospermic seeds are also called non-albuminous seeds. So here you can see the diagram of monocot embryo and dicot embryo. This is a monocot embryo, this is a dicot embryo. So when we were talking about the process of fertilization, the process of seed development, I was showing the dicot embryo. So here is the monocot embryo. There are slight differences. So this scutellum is the cotyledon for the monocot embryo. This coleoptile is the covering on the embryonic shoot. What is shoot? The above ground part of any plant. What is root? The below ground part of any plant. So embryonic shoot and embryonic root are very tiny and very soft. They are very vulnerable. So we need some protection. So this radicle will develop into root, and this coleoptile will develop into shoot, and this coleoptile have, and this coleoptile is a protecting layer on the shoot apex, and in the same way the coleorhiza is the covering on the root. So this is the very simple introduction of monocot seed and dicot seed, and here are some animated diagrams for better understanding of monocot and dicot seeds. So, and this is the revision lecture. This is not the in-depth lecture, so I cannot describe everything in detail because this video is going to be 1 hour, very long video, although it is a revision video. So now I am showing some fruits. So now I hope I have conveyed the structure of flower, the male and female part of the flower, the stamens and carpels, and the anther and filament, and the style, stigma and ovary, and the function of style, stigma and ovary, and the chambers in the anther, chamber in the ovary, microspore mother cells in the chamber of the anther, and again formation of microspore. Microspore is the first cell of male gametophyte. Male gametophyte is a pollen grain which may have 2 cells or 3 cells depending on the developmental stage, and also have some germ pores. Tube cell will come out in the form of pollen tube when it will get nutrients on the stigma of carpel. Stigma is the receptacle part of for pollen grains. After the process of pollination is the transfer of pollen from anther to stigma, of stamen to carpel. Finally, style will make path for pollen tube, and pollen tube will go to the embryo sac. Embryo sac is a 7-celled 8 nucleus structure, 3 antipodals, 2 cyanoids, 1 egg cell, 2 polar nuclei in the central cell, and there will be 2 fertilization events. First fertilization or syngamy between the sperm and the egg will form the zygote, which will form the embryo of monocot or dicot plant. Finally, the second fertilization, which is triple fusion between polar nuclei and one sperm, and it will give rise to primary endosperm nucleus, which will give rise to endosperm, and seeds will have or not have endosperm depending whether they are endospermic seeds or non-endospermic seeds. Generally, you will find monocot seeds as endospermic seeds and dicot seeds as non-endospermic seeds, and these are not the diagram of seeds, these are the diagram of embryos. This is the diagram of seeds, these are the seeds. And finally, different type of fruits are there, and fruits are helping in seed dispersal, of course, for propagation of the progeny, to avoid competition between siblings, competition for the light, for the shelter, for the space and other nutrients and water. So this is, and the final one more thing, this is a very long video, but I strongly think that it will be very helpful for class 10th as well as class 12th in this examination time for revision the second chapter. Finally, the topic apomixis and polyembryony, which is not included in class 10th, but it is very important part of class 12th. So what is apomixis and polyembryony? See, the first fertilization, when we were talking about double fertilization or triple fusion in the case of angiosperms, the first fertilization was the fusion of egg and sperm, and it is also called syngamy. Syngamy is the fusion of egg and sperm to form zygote, and zygote will form the plant embryo. And here it is called, one more thing, apomixis. What is apomixis? Apomixis is a phenomenon where without fertilization we are having seeds. Why? Because some cells of plant or female plant or ovule, what happens to those cells without fertilization, they will give rise to plant embryo. Now you can ask, the question will arise in your mind, how can this happen? This happens simply because when male and female gamete which are haploid fuses together to form a diploid structure which will develop into a complete plant. In this case, what happens, a diploid structure, a diploid cell of ovule, because as I have said that embryo sac is the female gametophyte and the pollen grain is the male gametophyte, and rest of the structures and cells of flower are diploid cells. So if any cell apart from embryo sac will develop into plant, it will be a diploid cell, and if this happens, that embryo will be called a apomictic embryo, and this phenomenon is called apomixis. It is a very brief topic in class 12 biology of 1 or 2 paragraph. So what is this is apomixis. So what was apomixis? It's simply a phenomenon called apomixis found in some angiosperms, particularly in grasses. It results in the formation of seeds without fertilization. So you need to remember only this line, seeds without fertilization. Simple. And it has several advantages. What are those advantages? If you remembered the advantages of vegetative reproduction from class 10th, what were those? The advantages of asexual reproduction. Those advantages are simple, that if you do not want variation, if you want to propagate any breed, you must go for the cloning or the asexual reproduction or the vegetative reproduction. So apomictic seeds will behave like sexual reproduction, because we see flowers and seeds in the sexual reproduction, but because they have developed from single parent, they have developed from single diploid cell, they will behave, they will give advantage or result like asexual reproduction. What are those advantages? No variation. If we have superior characters in any parent, they will propagate as it is in the next generation. So these are the advantages in the horticulture and the agriculture of apomixis. What is polyembryony? It is very simple. The simplest example is of orange. In the orange embryo or the lemon embryo have orange seeds have many embryos. Those occurrence of many embryos in single seed is called as polyembryony. And so the apomixis and polyembryony are very short topics. You can read as it is from your NCERT. So with this point, I conclude my lecture for the revision of chapter number 2, sexual reproduction in flowering plants, for first period test for class 12th biology. And I hope this video will be helpful for class 11th biology as well as for class 10th biology, because I have used very simple language, very simple presentation, although some presentation have some great details, but if you not delve in those details, and what I believe that if sometimes details are presenting in very beautiful manner or systematic manner, those details will help you to understand simple concepts better. If you so I hope this video will help all the students of class 10th and 12th in this examination time. Thank you so much.